everyone. Welcome. Come on and join us. Well, this is interesting. It definitely looks different than last time I saw it. Facebook just changes weekly. Say hello if you're here. Hi, Greer. Welcome. Hi, Jess Weller and Leslie. Good evening. It's nice to see you. I am also trying to start Instagram. However, I'm not sure
Is this one of your things?
I can do that. No. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Christine. Hi, Lisa again. Okay. Just so you guys know, as you're coming in, and welcome, I am trying to remember how to do Facebook. No. How to do Instagram. Wow. Oh, here we go. Video. All right, while I'm doing Facebook Live. So we'll see what happens. Not sure if it's press and hold. Okay. It's not working. All right, well, I can mess with that another time. Yeah, okay. All right, so thanks for joining me. Hi, Mary. Thank you for that. I am just, there we go. Okay, here's my regular view, which is fantastic. And I'm just going to give it another minute while people jump on and try to figure out how to get my my live video feed going for Instagram. So you know what? I'm just going to see how it goes. Oop. All right, and it's facing it's facing Keith. All right, there we go. Now it's in. So we got a nice video of Keith. Honey, can you get this in, please? Thank you. All right. Anyone else joined us that I missed? Oh, thank you, Mary. Those are my new glasses, my new purchase. Always something exciting at the Miller House. So cheers to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So tonight, I'm going to say so a bunch of times. We're not drinking when I say so. So tonight,
But you're drinking when she says so.
But tonight, what we're doing is we're doing tips and tricks. And thank you, Mary, very much. A lot of times when I'm stuck, I'll ask for ideas. And some of you join in. And can you turn the air conditioning up too? A lot of you will join in and give suggestions. And oftentimes I use Mary's and I don't. Oh, good. Thank you, Leslie. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And so a lot of times I don't give Mary credit, but she'll come up with some of my great themes. So thank you very much. Cheers to Mary. Welcome, Lori. Happy Friday. All right. So it's an evening of tips and tricks. So thank you all for joining us tonight. It's September 11th. And so I just want to give a cheers, but I haven't opened my wine yet. But you guys can all give a cheers to just a quick to all those we lost or who were affected in any way on September 11th. I know it's been a day of remembrance and looking back, and this is a time to take a break from things that are bringing us down and bring in some positivity and light. But I want to make sure that we acknowledge those folks who had many losses or were affected by September 11th. So cheers, and I will do that once I have a glass of wine. So I also want to give a cheers to my Aunt Elaine, who turns 90 years old tomorrow, and she's been quite an incredible influence and support in my life emotionally, and I just very much appreciate her. And so happy birthday, Aunt Elaine. So cheers to her. All right, so the reason that I have no wine is because I don't want to open up too many, but I do want to do a quick, here's how you use a wine opener, okay? Now, this is a traditional wine corkscrew, okay, manual. You'll see these, this is a waiter's corkscrew or a waiter's key, and you use the end, the corkscrew you can use to go around and open the foil. Let's see if I can tip this down. So to go around and open the foil. You can also use the knife on it to open the foil. And, I know, and then there's double hinges are better than single hinges because they bend, so you can get more flexibility within it. And so oftentimes I'll use the waiter's corkscrew, but it is some work. It is definitely some work. So this is my lazy, here's how I have an electronic one. And lately this one, it's a rechargeable and the batteries haven't been working quite as well. Those of you who watch Grace and Frankie, you might get a kick out of that because it's reminding me of what they've created. I don't want to give it away. But sometimes I'll go right through the foil if I'm lazy or I'm opening up a bottle of wine that I just am in a rush. I'll go right through the foil and it will do that and it will pull it up. And let's see, what else do I have? Oh, I have the rabbit. All right. And the rabbit is one of this is like super ultra easy. Notice I didn't take the foil off. Wine professionals right now all over the world are cringing to see this. Yep, all over the world. But it is really easy. I'll go right through the foil and I'm going to do that right now unless anybody wants to see the waiter's corkscrew. I'm hoping no. Thanks, Mary, for that comment. Okay, so this one, the rabbit, up and down, and that's it. And I decided to open up a label simply because I'm going to talk about why this one won't last, why it won't last. So I didn't want to open one that is one of my better wines to show you how to open it because I'm going to use my Coravin in a little bit. So Lisa says maybe the knife to open the first, but the electric for the second bottle to save the trip to the ER. Yes, there's reasons for all of them. And truthfully, Greer has a really cool one, which is a cup and just a corkscrew straight down. And you just turn it and the cup pushes against the bottle and pulls the wine up, the cork up. It's kind of an old school one. And actually to find it, you'd have to buy an antique one. They're labeled antique wine openers, but that works really, really well. Super, super easy. For this one, say the cork breaks. For this one, if I ever break a cork, never happens, does happen. You can use this to just carefully go in and get the rest of it. So it's kind of a nice add. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to pour a little of the label so that I can do a cheers to Antelaine and September 11th. All right. Well, that's interesting. All right. I'd like to share with you what I'm tasting. Okay. What is the old Jack LaLanne style? And Mary, get your mind out of the gutter. And this is what I'm tasting. A Labelle Granite State Red. It's 11.5% alcohol. And I believe it does not have a year on it. But typically local wines in California, where do we live? We live in New Hampshire, or I live in New Hampshire. Typically local wines in New Hampshire will not last that long. And we're going to talk about why when we talk about ageability, but it's a super, super simple one. Okay. So drinking game of the night. Every time I say tasting, please take a sip. Tasting. Okay. Everybody got it? Tasting is the drinking word of the night. I did just say it 5 times, but you really only need 1. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit right now about, and Greer is very fancy, yes, but Leslie, I'm still wondering about this Jack LaLanne style. I want to know what that is. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my company. I think most of you are familiar with what I've been doing, but anybody tuning in, and of course Instagram is not on, but anyone tuning in can learn a little bit about what we're doing here. And also I do want to let you know that, what's up and coming in Artisan Wine Group. But while I do that, if you could throw out some questions, I have a list, but I would love to hear some of your burning questions and we'll go back to them, okay? So Artisan Wine Group is me, and I need to get a sign that I put behind me so you can see that my company is Artisan Wine Group. It's a wine retail events and marketing company that I started a few years ago. And I've been slowly building it on the side, building it as I kind of go along and discover new opportunities. So originally I had this great vision of what I wanted to share, and I wanted to enable people to be consultants. And it's a little tough to get into the wine industry and to get support kind of on your own as a woman. And so I really wanted to enable that. And so I began I started my business. But what I'm actually beginning to realize is that for me, my company, my wine company, is all around health. It's about health. It's about feeling good, feeling connected. Okay, that's really what I do. I want to teach people how to taste wine rather than drink wine. We all know how to drink wine, but I like to teach people how to taste it, so they're connecting with wine on a different level. They're paying attention to it, and oftentimes you run into trouble if you are drinking when you're not feeling good. So it's important to get yourself in a good mindset before you have a couple glasses, right? So think of happy things, put yourself into positive energy, and that will carry through. So that's what alcohol really does, is it kind of increases the mood state of where you are. Okay, and we can certainly talk more about what does that mean to be healthy wine. But to me, that's at the core of this business. Feeling connected, helping people feel like they belong. And here, I really cherish each and every comment and each and every question, except for the dirty ones. No, I'm just kidding. And Chris Westberg isn't on, but I appreciate all of your humor and your movie references that I don't get. To me, that's just awesome, and it helps me feel connected to you as well. You'll notice that all of my wines are handpicked, handcrafted. Many of them are biodynamic or organic. So when I taste them, if I get a headache right away and I'm kind of food sensitive, or if I wake up the next morning and have a headache, I will not carry that wine. And so all of the wines that I carry are really specially picked for you guys. All right, so what do we do at Artisan Wine Group? We do these live Facebook Live tastings, drink, for fun and for connection. We sell tasting packs to go with the tastings for those who want to experience what I'm tasting along with me. We run events or attend events as the party starters, both live and virtually. So bridal showers and wine dinners, that sort of thing. We run virtual game nights with Vino, my wine tasting card game. And after COVID, we have plans to run more wine tasting tours, including some tours and conferences for my reps, because I think it's important to get out and see the vineyards and play. Hey, Dana Kaufman, hola, I haven't seen you in a while. So I'm starting to train reps to be able to do the same thing. So reach out to me if you're interested in learning and running events and learning about wine and running events, and how to do it and how to access it. And lastly, I created a wine tasting card game to easily teach about wine. But what I found is I created it to run a blind tasting, and then I found that it's actually super versatile, and that with this card game, you can play all these games that you grew up with, like War or Memory or Spit. I'm even trying to figure out possibly how you could do Go Fish with it, but you'd need 2 sets. So it's kind of fun. And then also it runs you through a blind tasting party. So those of you who own the game will learn a little bit about playing it tonight if we get to that question. And those of you who don't have it yet can see how it works by hanging out with us. All right. So one last note on kind of housekeeping, but the future of Facebook Live tastings, my tasting pack it was delayed because I am waiting for a couple Italian wines, and there was a delay because of school starting with my supplier. So it should be released next week. And for a sneak peek, we're going to have a Vermentino and an Hermitage, which is red from the Rhone, maybe some Aligote and some Jura, and definitely some Italian wine as well. So we also are going to switch back to Friday nights, but to every other Friday night. And so the next tasting will be September 25th. All right, so I'm going to skip our traditional Wine 101. I want to know so we have lots of comments, but no questions, and I want to know what you're drinking tonight. So as you're sharing with us what you are drinking tonight, I am going to share with you what I'm really drinking tonight, okay? This is what I'm drinking tonight. I'm waiting for it to warm up because I didn't pull it out early. I'm serving this at a tasting tomorrow night. It's the Ampelos Pinot Noir. I don't think I've done this one with Facebook Live because I did a similar one, which was a blend. It was actually a Syrah from the same vineyard. But this Pinot Noir is light and delicate, and it's Burgundian, so it's got kind of a rust to it, and it's just a stellar, beautiful wine. Because I'm using it for my wine tasting, not this one specifically, but I will continue to use them in wine tastings, I'm going to Coravin it. All right, so this is the Coravin. I've demonstrated it to you guys before, but I think it's really important to see what this does because it's super cool. And actually, if you become a rep, you get one as part of your package. So it opens and it clamps on the bottle, okay? Here's the bottle, and it just slips right over and it clamps on. And then you push, you can kind of see the needle. Can you see the needle? You push it straight down, okay? And it has a cartridge on the back that has nitrogen. And so, let's see, what glass do I want to drink out of tonight? Oops, I have a bunch of glasses to show you as well. And so then you tilt it and you add in the nitrogen and it pours out. You probably can't see it. Let me stand up. So, putting in the nitrogen. And it pours out. So what it's doing is it's preserving the wine as it pours. You can, like, I can start to see the bubbles because now there's room in the bottle. Okay, you could hear it. All right, so I'm going to share it with Keith so he can. Are you having this tonight?
Sure.
Okay. You can't have one of these glasses because I need the glasses. All right. So let's see what Lisa said. Question about the Coravin. When you use it, is it like the bottle is never opened? Yes. So the wine doesn't degrade at all. You could have, for example, one glass of a Greer level fancy wine and then keep the bottle for many months and enjoy it again. Yes. Can I have it again, honey? Okay. All right. So it's sitting on there. I put the gas in. It's sealed. All right. And because it's a thin needle, the cork will close around it. All right. So I'm going to take it out. Okay. That was a little rough, but so now it's out. Okay, now I think you can see this is all filled with gas. And when you tilt it, it's closed. So yes, it will preserve it. So you can do this. So a lot of fine restaurants do this with wine so they can pour the better bottles and they will they will stay for a long time. And that's how they're pouring better bottles using the Coravin. Okay, all right, great question. An unoaked, okay, so Jess is drinking an unoaked Chardonnay from Russian River Valley. And Lisa asked, is Ampelos Greek? They are. They're Central Valley, California. And the husband and wife love Greece and own a property in Greece that they rent out. But they own this beautiful biodynamic vineyard. It was one of the first certified biodynamic. Actually, it might have been the first in California. And so they have all sorts of birds and natural life to preserve the nature, to preserve the nature. Okay. All right, Leslie. Oh, that's oh, I love that. The Jack LaLanne. So Leslie was saying she had the Jack. That totally makes sense now. The Jack LaLanne opener. And you guys can see it in the comments. Yes, that's another good one. Absolutely. All right. So cheers to everybody. All right. So where are we? All right. Questions. And only Jess Weller shared what she was drinking. So make it up, guys. Participation. All right. So one of the questions that I got the other night was, why do you use a spit bucket? Okay. Or why do you not need a spit bucket? So a spit bucket is if you're tasting and you don't like it or you don't want to have a lot, you go to a tasting room and you taste a little bit of it or you want to spit it out. For a wine professional, they always have spit buckets because you're really not supposed to be drinking all those wines. If you drink all those wines, you're going to stop tasting them very quickly. And so any sort of sommelier events, you always will spit. If I taste with the Boston Sommelier Society, which hasn't happened for a long time, you are spitting, absolutely, and everybody is. There's no shame there. You're rinsing your mouth through, and then you're, and there are some events I've carried a cup before, almost like you're chewing, but you just gotta, because you just don't want to drink it too much or you won't taste it. Imagine you own a wine store and you're at one of these trade events, and you just can't, you wouldn't want to carry things that you drank at the end of the event without really tasting it. Okay, so that's that. Now, when I do tastings, a lot of people will say, will you bring a spit bucket? Well, this is what I'll tell you. You don't need a spit bucket except for dumping. And that, so you should always have a spit bucket on the table in case someone's done. Okay. Leslie is finishing a bottle of Salmon Run Riesling. Oh yes, that's wonderful. How did it preserve, Leslie? You'll have to tell us, because that was a while ago. So the Salmon Run Riesling is really stunning and wonderful and should age, but if opened, it might not be quite as good. Lisa is drinking a Villa San Juliet Sauvignon Blanc from Paso Robles. Yummy. Yes, Lisa, I agree. I love reds from Paso Robles as well. And so you have that positive association, but you've never had a white from there. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. I'm getting up for a minute because with my new glasses, cannot see a thing. Much, much better. I can see. All right. Okay, so that was a spit bucket. How about rinsing? What do you guys think? Do you need to rinse when you taste wine? What do you think? Yeah. So the question on the table is, do you need to rinse in between wine tastings? And my answer is no. If you attend an Artisan Wine Group wine tasting, what you're essentially doing is I'm shaping out your wine list so that you're tasting lighter to heavier. So in terms of body, you're going to have the lightest body to the heaviest. If you go to a wine tasting where you're tasting whites and reds and whites and reds, then you definitely need to rinse, but not in between. Like if I set up my wine list, I will do, let's say this Pinot Noir is, I don't know if you can see it, but it's beautiful. It's really light. And then I'll go, maybe a heavier Bordeaux blend. And then I don't often do a Zinfandel, but a Zinfandel. And so you set it up so the body of it is heavier each time. And that is going to entice your taste buds. However, if you had, let's say, a Pinot Noir first, and then you went to a Sauvignon Blanc, your taste buds are already coated. They're already stimulated. It's not going to taste the same. In fact, the taste will be blocked. It's very hard to go back. There are certain Sauvignon Blancs that are exceptional that can kind of cut through that fat or that feeling in with your taste buds. And sometimes bubbles can do that. But definitely you shouldn't need to rinse in between tastings. Okay, so Lisa asks, if a region is known for reds, for example, can they be good at whites too? Absolutely. If it is a good region, usually the better wineries will always put out a high quality product. They won't just put a product out to put a product out necessarily. Some will. But let's take the Finger Lakes as a perfect example. They're Riesling world class, known all over the world for their Rieslings, but they found that when people came to taste, they wanted a red. And so they did start working on reds, but they are very careful with what they put out. So either they'll come up with a varietal that not a lot of people have, like the Blaufränkisch that they came out with, which is light. So they're not known for great reds, but they have reds that are drinkable and they can take pride in. And a lot of times they'll go for a kind of a smaller varietal. But there are some regions like the Rhone. I mean, their whites, they're known for, their Syrahs, but their whites are outstanding. So great question, Lisa. Got it, Leslie, got it. Different bottle, I see. So Lori's got a 2017 Cab Franc from Miller Vineyard. Yay, Miller Vineyard. I've never heard of it before, but we like the name. Keith gave it a thumbs up. All right, so Greer asked, can you tell us about the different wine glasses shapes, which wine goes well in which glass? Great question. And here I have a selection of wine glasses to show you. Okay, so we're going to start with the white. White wine glasses, because you want in a white wine to have aromatics, so you want it to smell, you want to be able to smell the floral. All right, and by the way, I think I said tasting, which means you guys drink. So the thinner glass will funnel the aromatics up into your nose. So when you go to smell, your nose is in there, but it's also funneling it up. Okay, so great question, Greer. So white wine glasses are always thinner. Now here's the thing. When I didn't know a lot about wine, and we're going back, I don't know, 15 years, I went to the store and I bought a set that told me what glasses to use. And so I still have this one, okay? You can see the difference. Can you see it on the camera, honey? You can see the difference. You might not be able to, actually. So the white one, oh, I'm backwards, that's why. So the white one is thinner. This one is the red. And it says deep red on the bottom, so I can never mix it up. But it's supposed to, a red wine should be more bulbous. A red wine glass should be more bulbous on the bottom. We've talked about that, warms in your hand. But also you want more oxygenation of the wine to bring out the red wine characteristics. It all has to do with the phenolics and the aromas that and taste qualities that you want to pick up, and basically that you want your olfactory senses, your nose, to play with. Okay, so we have red wine. Now this one is an obvious red wine glass because it's got the big bulb. It's very, very wide. This big one that says deep red, this is when it used to be more confusing, right? It's pretty close, but it definitely is smaller in comparison. If I just picked it up, I might in this day and age serve white in it because it is pretty tall. It does funnel up the aromatics, but this is kind of the old traditional, this is a big red wine glass. Now, if you were to ask Riedel, the top wine glass creator and distributor, they have a whole course on wine glass usage, and they have a class, or a wine glass for each kind of wine. For me, that's a lot. And you can't sell their Riedel glasses unless you take the course and get certified. For me, that's a lot. I feel like it should be pretty simple, right? Why make it so difficult? Okay, this is a tricky one. It's got the big bulb on the bottom, but the thin top. What would you serve in that? Okay, Keith says red, and he's correct because of the big bulb on the bottom. Okay. For Pinot Noir.
So the other thing you should mention is how much you're actually filling it. Like,
okay.
So like a 4 ounce pour or
2 ounce. Yep, good. Thank you. So this is a Pinot Noir glass, and it's the shape and the lip that is supposed to enhance the taste qualities that are in the wine. It's specific to that varietal, okay? And as Keith mentioned, there are certain levels that you're supposed to pour, and I'm better with some glasses than others, but I do want to share with you these. These each are tulip glasses, and so they go more nowadays with our culture, right? The tulip glasses, they're universal. And when I went to France, this is what they served everything in, these tulip glasses. This one, it would be considered a red burgundy glass, but it's all about the shape and the aromatics of each varietal. Okay. Now,
what I'm actually asking about is where like a 2 ounce pour would land.
Yes, got it. Thank you. So this one is a typical tasting glass. Okay, it's a little glass. The wine would sit in here, and then you easily swirl it and smell it, and it brings the aromatics up. But this one is one of my favorites I got from Australia, and they poured a sample of bubbles in this one from Chandon. Okay, another tasting glass because of the size. And then this one is from the Nantucket Wine Festival, and I do like to keep my glasses from special events, but these are typical tasting glasses that they give out at events now because of the price, quite honestly. So you can see it, they're always gonna be clear, and they can take, the white, the aromatics, and then the red, they're not really bulbous, they're not really made for red, they're made for tasting, okay? Just wanna make sure I covered all of these. And then Keith asks about how much you pour. Okay, I'm gonna use the Labelle wine to pour, all right? This is the easiest measure. So a 2-finger pour. So for a tasting, it should be 1 or 2 ounces. And I would consider that, because it's a bigger glass, it's hard to tell by fingers, but that's probably 2.5. And I have pourers that measure out how much. And then if you go to, this has happened before, I've gone to restaurants and I know it's supposed to be, it'll say in the menu it's supposed to be a 6-ounce pour, and a standard pour is 4 ounces. But sometimes they'll say it's supposed to be a 6-ounce pour. I can kind of tell when they're wrong. You can just tell where it falls.
So
To me,
so
that's a big one.
so my point is, like, from the glasses perspective, is there a proper place to pour it to, like, so that you optimize?
So you
like,
can tell each glass is different. So what I'm pouring here is going to come out differently here.
I know, but the glasses are supposed to be
No,
different for the varietals. So.
for the varietals, but not the pours.
No. So
I don't understand what you're asking. Does anybody else? Anyone else? So what do you mean?
So show me a Cabernet Sauvignon glass.
I don't have one. I mean, this would be like a standard.
Pick a varietal for that glass.
Okay. Okay, Cap.
Okay, so you're pouring a cab into that glass.
Yeah.
Is that glass, because it's a good glass for a cab, is a 4-ounce pour give you like the optimal surface area? For
No.
That,
No.
do you see what I'm going with that?
Yes. Okay. So just for those of you who aren't following us, this is the dynamic in this house. Great questions. Takes me a minute to get there. So the story of both of our lives. And so what Keith is asking is there an optimal pour per varietal? So Cabernet, Pinot Noir, is there no. The pours are really based on how much the restaurant is going to pour for the bottle, right? So a bottle is 24 ounces. You would only get 4 pours for a 6-ounce pour. Okay, that's what it's really about. The 2-ounce pour, that's regulated by the New Hampshire state, most governments, federal governments, because they need to be sure when you're doing a tasting, you're not drinking too much. And so really when you walk out of a tasting, you should only have 5 ounces. Now in the US, it doesn't always go that way, but it's supposed to. In France, we drank, and I think I've said this before, but we drank very little. They take drinking and driving very seriously, but even if you have a driver, you do a 2-hour tour, and at the very end, you get like 2 ounces of wine. So there really wasn't a lot of wine being poured in those tastings. All right, so back to the list of questions here. So Lisa said something about trying to go back for years, but I don't know what, I missed that reference. Fancy looking cans, yes. So some of the wines in cans are awful and some are good. Some of the better wineries have been trying out. They have new liners that they're putting inside the can so that the wine doesn't pick up the taste of plastic. So they do have better cans of wine. The problem is the acid and the sugar and the tannins, that's going to break down the liner. And that's why when you have wine in plastic, you start to pick up the taste of plastic because it can break it down. I even can taste it in hard plastic if it's just straight wine, not sangria or anything like that. But otherwise I can. So that's a great question, Lisa. If you have like a favorite fruit forward sipping wine, I would definitely drink it in a can. Yeah, I mean, yes. When you're drinking, okay, so as an aside to that, when you're drinking out of a metal can, I pick up the taste of metal from the can itself. So I would pour it into a glass to do it, okay? So Lisa asks, are there any good ones? There are, but I can't recommend them. But there is a big movement for wine in a can, only in the US, by the way. When I was working on putting together a drink with a winemaker from France, he said, by the way, we don't carry around our drinks. We don't carry them around. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, in the United States, you travel with your drinks. You go to the beach, you bring your drink. They drink their wine and their beverages in their homes with dinner. They don't go to the beach. And I mean, they have places at the beach where they might serve wine. And I'm thinking specifically of Jess Weller and Scott in France, having oysters on the beach with a glass of Sauvignon Blanc of Sancerre. But they don't carry it. They don't have these ready to go drinks that we have. So it's kind of, they're not doing wine in a can. And the other big thing is wine in a keg. That's coming out as well, so that it's free flow tapped wine.
Dana.
So that's something you'll see. Greer says red. I'm not sure what you're asking. Joanne gave her Riedel taste a wine set. Oh, she broke them all. Yeah, they are. They're definitely thinner. Though Marshall's carries and TJ Maxx carries Riedel's lower brands. And oftentimes, if I have a tasting where I'm bringing the glasses, I'll bring a set of those. I bet Chris Hemsworth does have Australian glass. All right. So going down the list. Wine kegs. Dana says wine kegs. All right. And there's gift giving going on, gift planning. Fantastic. All right. Any other questions, or should I'll keep running down my list? This is actually kind of fun. And hopefully you guys are enjoying and getting something out of this too. So Mary asks, and throw your questions in there so I'll go back to them, but Mary had asked, how do you age wine? Like how do you choose wine to age? How do you buy wine to age? And so that's a really great question.
How do you know when to age wine?
How do you know when to age wine? Correct. And so here's the thing, 95, and some people will say 97% of wine is not made to age. So some of us have a friend who collects wine, and he bought a lot of it. He buys it around important dates, when he was traveling, when his kids were born, when he got married. And so he saves wine from around those dates, but they're always from really, really good wineries. Okay. So again, I can't emphasize enough, most wine is not made to age. Most wine nowadays is meant to be drank within 3 years or so. So, we talk a lot about how winemakers are artists, right? And so in their vision, they are creating a wine thinking you are drinking it pretty soon. Okay. All right. And so, Leslie is saying a keg is 26 bottles. Yeah, Leslie, can you imagine? We do not have wine on tap, but there are liquor stores that are starting to sell them, and there are places like in downtown San Francisco, there are wine bars that everything's on tap, and they have mini kegs as well that they'll send to restaurants. So and they're fine wines, absolutely. All right, so why age wines? Why would we even age it? We age wines because it brings out a new characteristic in the wines. If you have, that top 3% that can be aged, when you open it today, it's going to taste completely different than when you open it in 10, 15 years. And so people enjoy kind of slowly unveiling and tasting those wines. What you find is that, let's say 10, 15 years, a really good red, it smooths out, the time smooths out the acidity and the tannins, and it brings out special characteristics to the fruit. It could make it more smoky. It could be more tobacco-y. It could be even just the fruit is more stewed, but not in a bad way, in a good way. More voluptuous is probably a better way to put it. And so usually those collector wines don't taste great when they're first released. So they're described as closed, tight. Okay, get your minds out of the gutter. Closed, tight, austere, grippy, or hold. Even sometimes they get tagged with a lower rating because the wine hasn't aged to open to its full potential. I see that a lot with Italian wines. When I look up newer Italian wines, people will say, oh, they're so grippy, they're so tight, they're closed. When you read that about a wine, what that means is, number one, and some of you experience this with some of our wines, when they sit out for an hour, they open up, right? But also they will age better. And what's that? Oh, hi, Michelle. Welcome. Oh, I didn't get her on mine. I'm looking for Clef du Vin. So believe it or not, my brother, who's on tonight, does not give me many recommendations about wine. However, he's a big supporter. And he said to me once, I'm hearing out here in Washington that people are using collectors are using this thing called a Clef du Vin. Now, because we're talking about tight and closed, your mind could go there with Clef du Vin because it is, a French exciting word. But what it is this really cool thing. And if you see at the end, it has a little copper tip to it. I don't know if you can see that. The light is playing kind of funny on it. But when you dip this into wine that is tight and closed, let's see, does that help it? Yes. You see that thing at the end? It's not a hole, it's copper. Okay. And when you hold it in the wine, they say for every second that you hold it in the wine, it ages a year. So if you want to age it 3 years, you want to age it 5 years, it does open it up. It does change the structure of Clef du Vin. I really don't use it that often, but when I travel, sometimes I'll use it. Just, again, most wineries that I've been visiting in the last 3 years, their wines are made for drink now.
It's basically just an electrical interaction, right? Like the difference between two metals.
So I'm going to let you answer that. You guys know students. Yes. And I've read online, so if you take a copper penny, clean it, especially during COVID, really clean it and dip it into wine, it will kind of open it up a little bit. It's the interaction with the copper, but it's not as accurate as the Clef du Vin. So I once asked a winemaker, Johannes in the Finger Lakes, because I love him and you can age Riesling, what he thought of that. And, his response was, that as artists and winemakers, they don't really love it because it does change the character. It's not exactly what they would want it to taste like in 5, 10, 15 years. So yeah, copper at the end, just that little tip, Leslie, just the little tip. Okay, if anybody ever wants to borrow it, you're welcome. You're welcome too. So back to the aging. All right. So for reds, what do you want for a red to age it? It needs to have structure and balance, meaning when you taste it, it doesn't fall apart. You have a taste and it holds the entire time. And it's balanced. It's not just all fruits, not all acid. It's not all tannins, though high acid, high tannin can help a wine age. Okay, and so there are the tannins or polyphenols stabilize things like color and flavor. So wines with only moderate tannin, which can come from oak or grape skins and stems, seeds, have longer runway to age. Also sweetness, so sugar can help it age. Okay, sugar is, it's a certain level. So sweet wines, you can keep those out, and those will age a long time. Like I have an Enniskillen ice wine. And you could keep it out for 10 years, and it's fine. So fruit, like in jam, it's a preservative. So high sweetness levels help preserve. And then alcohol levels. So alcohol is interesting. It's one of the primary catalysts that cause wine to break down, but it also acts as a stabilizer in higher amounts. So fortified wines, for example, those can last. Okay, so you also want to look at the producer. If they're producing it on property, high quality, and they've had aging wines, high quality wines, 15, 20 years, likely they are going to continue to produce wines that can be aged. I have to say, I'm trying to think back to some of the wines that I've had that were ageable in the last few years. And there really aren't many, but certainly some of the Rieslings that I had, definitely.
Just gives you an excuse to drink them.
Yes, I think we need to drink more to determine that. So here's some wines red wines that are really good to age. Nebbiolo, 20 years. Aglianico, 20 years. Cabernet Sauvignon, 10 to 20 years. Tempranillo, 10 to 20 years. Sangiovese, 7 to 17 years. Merlot, 7 to 17 years. Syrah, and I can go on, but Syrah, Pinot Noir, Malbec, Zinfandel, those are reds that will age. Zinfandel's more like 5 years, okay? So I think it was Lori Bailey. Lori, I think you had a wine you asked me about, and you were kind of like, how will this age? And the good producer, that one lasted. Sometimes there's surprises. Like I did a wine tasting where a whole bunch of people donated wines, and there were like really, really, really old New Hampshire wines. You know what I mean? Like they were not going to be good. There was like a Barefoot from, I don't know when they started, 2003. That was not going to be good. But I used my Coravin to taste the ones that were close, because then I could taste them and know if they were going to be good. And there were a couple surprises. So that's reds. And again, for reds, for aging, balanced with moderately high acidity, and you want to be able to feel the finish. So if there's a long tingly aftertaste from the acidity, that will usually last a little bit longer. And also the dry astringency of the tannin. If it's out of balance, too much tannin, not a lot of acidity, it could age a little different. Leslie, that's a great question. Have you compared a couple of bottles by opening one now and then aging one to see if it was a bit different? No, but I have plans to. Wine Folly is one of the greatest resources online. I love their stuff. I use a lot of their maps, so you've seen them. And they're fantastic. And they did a comparison of Duckhorn Merlot, over 4 of them, over 20 years. And that was interesting. And I pulled some of the information from that. I actually when Michelle and I were in France, they did have us taste a few through the years. So you can see how they open in their tasting room. They might serve you a 2017, a 2015, and like a 2005, just to give you a comparison. So that's kind of cool. I haven't had that as much
So
in the U.S.
those would be wines from essentially the same vines with the same mixture and
Yes,
stuff like that?
great question. Yes, yes. So Keith asked, would those be the same wines from the same vineyards? And yes, they would be.
Same vines.
Not exactly. It depends on the climate and what's occurred in the vineyards. But when I say vineyards, I mean block of land. When I say vines, sometimes they'll give vines a rest. So within that specific area, but you couldn't guarantee the same vines, and sometimes they need to be pulled, and so Jess asks how long you can keep a bottle with alive with Coravin. So that's a great question. It should stay for years. It should. I get a little nervous with them, but I've definitely had some that are for a year fine.
And we've seen some with like dry corks that
Right. We had one that I had tasted for my company that the cork dried out. And so once the cork dried, because we didn't lay it down, then the wine came out of it. But that's my keeping of it. That is not the Coravin. And that's important, because if you buy wine and you're going to age it for 10 years and you keep them standing up in a hot room, they're not going to last. You have to lie them down. The cork has to be kept wet. That dry cork will shrivel and let in oxygen. And that's kind of the issue with collecting too. Like you'll see online, people collecting will say, selling this wine from 19 whenever, but you don't always know how you have to be really careful because you don't know how it's stored. But there's storage units where collectors can keep their wine and have it certified. So that's becoming a big business as well. Okay, great questions. So for whites, 3 factors to look for with age. With age-worthy dry whites, moist. Yes, Mary, thank you. And I think we should be tasting by now. Hopefully you guys are drinking along. All right. Leslie asked, should you rotate wine? Leslie, tell me what you mean by that. Do you mean by that in your fridge, in your wine fridge? Oh, turning. Do you mean turning? Yeah, the only thing is if it's laying down correctly, there should always be wine on it, because the bottle should essentially be filled and then corked. There's not a lot of space. So really you don't need to, but that's a good question. Thanks, Christine. Thanks. Oh, Jazz. That's a cute icon. All right. So what you're looking for in age-worthy whites: acidity, a little bit of phenolic bitterness, which I'll talk about, and then oak as well. Wines that are oaked, that they can age as well. So white wines age in oak, like Chardonnay. Remember the Pinot Gris we had that was oaked? They have polyphenols. And so polyphenols help mitigate the chemical reactions that break down wine, and the acidity needs to be high. Otherwise, what happens is white wines get flabby, like over fruity. But best aged wine I ever had, I think it was 2003, again, that Finger Lakes trip. We went to Christopher Bates, who was one of the top master sommeliers in the world. And we went to his restaurant and we ordered using a Coravin. He brought us a 2003 Gergich Chardonnay, and it was like candied almond, apricot, but not sweet, dry. And it just kept opening up and opening up, and it was unbelievable. Just one of the best wines I've ever had. Yes, truly amazing. So, let's say, let me read through really quickly. It's really a simplified list of white wines that have aging potential. So there's Chardonnay, especially Burgundy Chardonnay, white Burgundy, Trebbiano, Semillon from Bordeaux, Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc's more like 4 years. And notice the years drop, right? So Chardonnay is 10, Trebbiano is 8, Semillon is really only 7, except for Bordeaux. Sauvignon Blanc is 4, Viognier is 4. So I don't really consider those aging much. Pinot Gris, 3 years. So you can age them, but that's not, to me, 3 years, but a Pinot Grigio, that's made to drink right away. Yep. Michelle, best wine, right? Oh, it was amazing. Just amazing. And we need to do a Finger Lakes trip once COVID's done, definitely. Everybody. Bitterness, phenolic. Okay, Lisa, I knew you'd pick up on that, sweetheart. Awesome. So polyphenols, okay, it's a bitterness. And what it does is it slows down the wine breaking up. And it comes from terpenes, which are found in aromatic white wines like Riesling. And Riesling wasn't on that list, but Riesling is definitely an ageable wine because of the acidity, and it really kind of mitigates it. And a little bit of reserve sugar, but it's also, you can get polyphenols from slightly underripe grapes, longer skinned contact during winemaking, and as long as the wines aren't overly bitter and they have good acidity, the wines that I mentioned, you can expect them to age pretty well. So, all right, wow. Time is going really quickly. I know I've talked a lot. What I want to do is cover, and I have so many more questions to answer for you, like what is a sommelier? Let's see. I covered a lot of it, actually. The pairing wine and food, those sort of the things. But and who is the woman in the picture on the front that's wine tasting with me? The picture that I put for this wine tasting event is a picture of my sister and I right before the COVID pandemic really hit on a wine tasting trip in Oregon. I was at a conference, and we were fortunate enough to stay at the Allison Inn Spa. And it was amazing. And because of the pandemic, a lot of people had canceled. So we sat at the chef's counter and watched him create our food. And then the sommelier brought the wines that paired with the food. It was incredible. So yes, phenolic. Yes, thank you, Lisa. All right. So I'm going to just walk you through my wine tasting game. Okay. So what happens is if you have vino, here's how it works. And the reason I'm covering it on video is a lot of times when people give someone a wine tasting card game, I don't know, it's almost like a murder mystery game. And, I don't know about you, but at my age, I don't love reading directions. So what would happen with vino, with my card game, is you would have your wines for tasting and you would bag them, right? So you'd have wine tasting bags and they'd be covered. And so you take your first wine and you deal everybody 5 cards and they're face down. And everybody has their wine and then they taste and they keep the cards that they think match. So let's say I'm drinking the salmon, the one that Leslie has, the Salmon Ridge or Salmon Run Riesling, okay? And I pick cinnamon, red cherries, chocolate, okay? None of these are all really red wine cards, okay? So I'm going to discard those. I'm going to put those down and I'll pick more cards. And then let's say, so I get 5 more. And I'm going to keep the ones that go with the Riesling, okay? So I'm going to taste it again. I'm going to look. Eucalyptus? Nope, that's Australian wine. Black plum, again, a red card. Nectarine? Riesling, stone fruit, nectarine. Yes, I'm going to keep it. Farmyard, nope, not in a Riesling. And earthy, no, a Riesling is not earthy. And I would taste it. I would look at it and say, okay, what does earth taste like? Not that I'm saying you should drink it or eat it, but what does earth taste like? And then I would taste my wine and I would say, you know what? No, there's no earth in here. And so when we would go over, the leader of the group would then go around and ask everybody to reveal the ones they kept. And you get a point for everyone that's correct. And so nectarine is correct. So I would get a point. Okay. And there's more to the game, but that's the basics of it. And so I'm gonna pick. This is a game for you guys. I'm gonna pick 4 cards that I know go with a varietal. And I want to see if you guys can figure out what the varietal it is. Okay? Where's my earth? I want earth. Okay. All right. So we have earth, which also could be potting soil. We have black cherries. We have coffee. And we have violet. Okay. So what varietal could that be? What varietal could that be? All right. Any guesses?
Merlot.
Ooh, interesting. We have a guess over here, a quiet one. Any others? I haven't named this game yet. Okay, Cabernet, Jess, good guess. Any others? All right. I'm going to give it one more minute. Any other brave folks? All right, Keith, tell us Sangiovese. Lori says Sangiovese. Keith, what do you say?
Not drinking Merlot.
Keith says Merlot. Okay, so great guesses, and Leslie says Merlot too. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why it could be Merlot or Malbec and why it's not Cab. Okay, very rarely. So in Cab, you would get black cherries, definitely. You would definitely get earth. You can get coffee. You can. And that would come from the barrels. Okay, but you won't usually get that floral, that violet in a Cab. Okay, Merlot, you get the black cherries, you get the earth, and you get the coffee or chocolate in Merlot. And the same thing, and the violet, you can get the violet overtones in Merlot and in Malbec.
Violet, not violent.
Violet, okay? And violet it's musky sweetness, but it tastes a little bit bitter. It's bittersweet and has perfumed floral notes, and that's what the Cab doesn't have. It's that perfumed part. And for Lori is correct in everything too, kind of like the Cab with Sangiovese. But you'd want a more telltale sign like mushrooms or let's see, for Sangiovese, more red fruit. But again, that violet wouldn't come up on the Sangiovese, so that was the key. Okay. Yes, and Jess guessed with the first two cards. And had she waited, and though I appreciate you guessing, had you waited, you may have gotten it. Okay. So there are all sorts of games that we can play, and I'm going to do some more virtual tastings, but you do have to have the card pack because it's hard to do virtually. If you do a live tasting party, I'm using my cards in my live tastings because it's giving people kind of hands-on experience with it. But we'll keep playing more games like that. Okay. So any other questions that I can answer? We're out of time. That went really, really fast. There's wine and food pairings I didn't cover. What do I drink on a hot summer night? Usually bubbles or the Vino Verde or Sauvignon Blanc or Viognier. And I do have I have an article on weird wine aromas and what they mean. So I might just post that online. And questions about sulfites and all of that. If you have more questions, go ahead and post them. Message me, post them on Artisan Wine Group, post them on Instagram. Anytime you tag me, that helps with my social media presence. So I love it. And so thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Cheers to all of you. Cheers to all of you. Cheers to you, Keith. Have a great 2 weeks, and we'll see you on September 25th. Woo-hoo.